Hello, good people of YouTube. My name is Nathan, and today I'll be talking about the model minority myth and how it affects Asian Americans. So the questions I'll be answering are: what is the model minority myth? What events led to the creation of the model minority myth? Why is the model minority myth bad for Asian American identities? Why didn't Asian Americans push back against the model minority myth? When did Asian Americans start to push back against the model minority myth? Why is it important to address the problem of the model minority myth? So what is the model minority myth? Well, the definition is the socially constructed idea that has Asian Americans being seen as this polite, law-abiding group who have achieved a higher level of success than the general population through some combination of talent and extreme levels of hard work. This can be described as like being based on the stereotypes of Asian Americans being good at math and science, not good at sports, or the high standards as Asian Americans to become a doctor, lawyer, engineer, and being part of this higher economic class. The first use of the term model minority myth was coined by William Peterson on January 9th, 1966, in a New York Times article called Success Story Japanese American Style. It was applied to Japanese Americans first, and it was this greater success story from rags to riches. So what events led to the creation of the multi-minority myth? Well, the first event started with the incarceration of the Japanese Americans during World War II. Japanese Americans were deemed a threat to the West Coast, and through this image we see Japanese Americans were told to leave with only what they could carry. Second event was the Naturalization Act of 1965. The act eliminated the national origins quota system and led to large numbers of Asians moving to America. It also led to family. You could come to America if you have family or skilled workers with advanced degrees. Thirdly, the Korean and Vietnam War were events that led to thousands of refugees coming from Asia to the United States. So the bottom image you see is a helicopter in Hanoi, um, trying to get as many people out to U.S. ships heading back to the United States. So why is the model minority myth bad for Asian American identities? Well, it starts with mental health, the pressures and expectations of being a good model minority weigh down on Asian Americans. The high test scores, high rankings, or good money making job, and the expectation to be strong and independent weigh down on the it produces stress, anxiety, and Asian Americans sometimes can't feel like they can't live up to those expectations. There's racism, so stereotypes such as not being good at sports or that they can only be the best at academics. It adds to the list of how Asian Americans are wrongly perceived. The reality is, not all Asian Americans conform to the model minority mis- lifestyle, and Asian Americans are more than just Koreans, Japanese, uh, Chinese, Indians, Vietnamese. And we see players in sports like Jeremy Lin or Shohei Ohtani who represent Asians and Asian Americans in American televised sports and help and prove that Asians and Asian Americans can be good at uh, uh, sports and play at a professional level. So why didn't Asian Americans push back against model minority? Well, it started with life in incarceration camps for Japanese Americans. As I said, they can only carry what they could take with them to the camps, and the rest was boarded up in their homes, which was later in during the war, while the Japanese Americans were gone into the incarceration camps, was stolen and confiscated, and there was little chance of getting any of that stuff back. And then during the Korean and Vietnam War, refugees coming over only had their documents and some clothes. Um, they left their wealth back home and were starting over in the U.S. And um, with that being said, the refugees and the Japanese Americans coming out of incarceration camp were looking for just a way to survive. They had limited work opportunities and Some of them had to wake up early and perform manual labor work. As you can see at the bottom image, Japanese Americans were still unwanted, and they had to compete for limited work opportunities like manual labor. The top image shows some of the living conditions. Many Asian Americans, especially Japanese Americans, after leaving the incarceration camps, had to live in these RV parks. When did Asian Americans start to push back against model minority myth? It started with the second generation. The second generation had better living conditions, and there was a rift between the first and the second generation. The second generation was viewed as having a lack of drive and determination to get ahead in life because it seemed so easy from the first generation's perspective. The second generation had views on life such as having more fun in life, and some of them felt like they were excluded from the norm of being this really smart, nerdy, or not being good at sports and can only do certain things. Because minority myth was pushed down from the first generation because it had worked for the first generation as being hardworking or smart. There were just conflicting interests and views on how to live a successful life. Second generation, they couldn't take it anymore with these high expectations and standards, and they started coming out and sharing about their experiences and their views on the model minority myth. So here we have this Gidra article, and it's about a Japanese second generation uh, daughter. She's talking about in this article about her views on life, how she disagrees with her dad about what it means to be a successful uh, person in society and what it means to be good in society. Um, and just stuff, articles like this came out across the United States, showing this movement towards away from the model minority myth and more towards, hey, do what represents me best besides this model minority myth. So why is it important to address this problem and how can we do it? So it's harmful to the identities of all Asian Americans. It provides this inaccurate picture of what Asian Americans are good at, and it reinforces these common academic stereotypes about what Asian Americans can do. Um, it's seen in media references about Asian Americans being only good at school and only caring about grades. So the video, it's a picture of a video at the bottom, but it's about B plus again. It's this video that popped up in 2010 about it's basically saying that Asian Americans, if you get a B plus, then you're dead to your parents. Your parents don't like you. They will yell at you for getting a B plus, even though a B plus to many people would be an acceptable and really good grade. Um, how can we minimize the effects of the model minority myth? Um, and so, how can we minimize these effects of the model minority myth? Well, it starts with educating our peers about the model minority myth. The people such as our friends or our family or our relatives, and really just educating them on what is the model minority myth and why it's so harmful to Asian American identities and why it's wrong to view Asian Americans as only good at um, education or and not so good at other areas of life such as um, sports. Um, using another way we can minimize the effects is using social media to educate others about the misconceptions, stereotypes, and understandings of Asian American values. Thirdly, we can encourage and support our peers who are taking majors different from the stereotypical majors that that Asian Americans are perceived to take, like bio, math, STEM. And long term, we can be supportive and proud of our children. And even if we disagree with our children, um, it's not our job to be pushing and make them pursue a certain field only. And that's the end of my presentation. Have a wonderful day.